today we have so many news. We have news in Sram, in Eliotrope, in Huppermage, and in Feca. Besides that, we also have some other things that they fixed or they added in the game. So stick around and find out what happened. I'm just telling you that Sram is so different, looks so good now, it really seems like an assassin, so let's dive into that. So let's start things off with visuals and animations. Again, 150 pieces of equipment have been reworked, so that's quite a lot. Also, the walking and running animations again was also changed to see if the player bounces less. Also, we have some things different in the interfaces. Nothing really too crazy about it. Then we also have a lot of changes in the maps. So basically now a lot of the maps were easy to exploit, very easy to exploit. And so they changed these things so that it's more balanced, let's say. Let's see if it will not be too broken. So hopefully not. Besides that, there was also some problem with some high-level dungeons where you could not really see, because of the color of the dungeons, you could not really see the tiles, and now that thing was increased, the readability. Also, in the fight, there were a bunch of fixed things. Mainly here, the Zobal and the Pandawa, when they transformed, would be very slow. So gladly now it is more smooth. A bunch of other things were also fixed here in the Miscellaneous. And now we go for what you guys are looking for, the classes. So let's start things off with the Pandawa. The Pandawa no longer becomes abnormally drunk when throwing the drunkard barrel. Then we have the Ozamodas, and this is something that Ozamodas were really needing some time ago, because Ozamodas were just really viable in one way element, and now we can actually use it as a multi-elemental way, because now the power will stack 100% to the summons. Besides that, the damage was 50% to the summons and now gives 100% to the summons. So this is honestly super good. Let's see how it will bring to the Ozamod. Let's see if it actually will play a big role on the Ozamodas. In my opinion, I think it will be such a big change. Besides that, also the focus arrow now attracts to the center of the area, and there was a small fix in the crushing arrow, the one that gives gravity. Apparently now the miasma infects correctly, and now the Copper from Zobal can be cast in gravity state, which means basically he can do the damage, but he can't really teleport himself, which is nice, because a lot of the spells, if you are in gravity, you cannot really do them anymore, and it's nice to see that you can still do the damage of the spell, you just cannot teleport. Besides that, now you can use the prey every single turn, apparently, once per turn, but you can do it every single turn. And now the game here is not really well translated, but it's the variant of the prey. Now it will last until the end, until basically the enemy dies. This was something that was really needed a long time ago. The beaten, I think it was 150, but they reduced for 125 on the last rework, but they already are returning with this power bonus. This is quite nice. Then this one here is a spell that basically was quite changed a bit. Now the rage increases immediately. Instead of like before that, you just place the spell and then someone had to do something to you in order to trigger the rage. And then there was also a lot of different water spells that got some lifesteal, and the damage of the tibia is no longer decreasing. We also have an increase of the range of the Molosso, and the Humorous now does not have the line of sight. Arcanine here, you can apparently cast it once per turn. Now the Sacred, the Crown of Thrones, the Crown of Thorns, basically it was increased again. The early levels, I think it was already like this in the last rework, but they kind of like just reworked. Then the Transfusion, the same thing, and now the Cape Ital now does not have a free throw attraction when you do the attraction spell. This was actually super important for endgame PVM. The Sacred would use this cape here a lot of the times. So now let's go for the main classes that got reworked. Here the Huppermage, my main. The Dart here got a maximum range in the early level. Then we have the Ether that now you can basically increase the agility when you use this Ether, and you can use it 4 times in the same turn. That is actually huge. At level maximum, at level 3, you can actually get 120 agility if you cast it 3 times, the Ether. So it's quite interesting. Besides that, it also has a bigger range. Honestly, super good, but it's no longer line of sight. But now you can actually augment your range, or if someone steals your range, you get lower range. But overall, I think this was a buff. It's quite nice. And we also have an increase in the damage. So besides increasing the range, we also have a damage increase, and it's quite a bit. It's not a lot of it, but it's quite a bit. Then we have the Piercing Gust, which is basically the AoE agility spell that steals life. Now, basically from level 1, you can recast it every single turn. Then we have the Hurricane that basically now uses the Ether function, which is basically you no longer need a line of sight, but it's only 4 cells. It's basically the Ether, but with 2 action points. I prefer it like that because it's really important to have it like that because you use the Ether and then the Polarity to basically teleport symmetrically. And now you can use it with 3 action points and use it if someone is like behind something, behind a wall or an enemy. But now we have the Astral Blade. That Astral Blade does not give range anymore. But it's a bit weird because now it has just 3 range and you cannot really get more range with it and you teleport symmetrically to the target. This is a bit weird because why would I use this one that costs 4 action points instead of just doing the Hurricane and Polarity that cost me 3 action points? Honestly, I don't think I will use this spell like a lot because it's not really like good because it's only 3 range and with the Hurricane it's 4 and the Polarity is also 4, so this is actually such a nerf on the Astral Blade. It does not really make sense in my opinion. Then we have the Command. The Command got an increase in the damage. The Flamethrower here got a huge damage buff. It went from 13 to 16, 15 to 18 and 23 to 27 and 25 to 30. This is a huge buff. So now we can clearly see a level of importance of the elements. Before it was a bit weird. It did not make any sense. So now we have basically water being the closest damage and the highest damage. Then we have the fire, then we have the air, and then we have the earth damage with the higher range and the lowest damage. So now we really can see the whole spectrum of the elements because before the air and the fire elements were a bit weird. They were like very mixed. It did not really make sense. So now, for example, using the white-red set at level 100 will be super nice because you'll have the flame. We have basically the fire and the water wave being like the 2 close spells. Then you also have the Deflagration that got its damage a bit increased, mainly in the lower levels. Then we have the Solar Lance that got a bit of a nerf on the base damage but got a bit of a buff in the critical damage. Then we have the Stalagmite that is basically the first spell that you can get as a water elemental way and does the same thing as the others ones, which basically you increase the chance and you can accumulate 4 times. Also, there was a nerf on the first levels, but there was a buff on the higher level, on the level 136. You actually get more damage with this spell, so this is actually quite interesting. And besides that, you also have maximum range from going to 2 to 4. This is honestly super interesting. It allows that the chance elemental weight is not so restricted to close combat. Now it's more like a melee to mid-range, so that's quite nice. Mainly for the early levels, it will help a lot for the people that want to go chance way. Now we have the Flood here that you actually can get it on the early levels. You can get it, I think, in level 70 to 90, something like that. But before it was like level 195 or something like that. So it was very high-end level spell. So now you can get it very early level. And now we have the Frozen Charge that you can do it 3 times in the same turn. And also got a buff in the critical damage. Then we have the Earth Wave, which is basically the first Earth spell. It also gives you strength bonus. And it got nerfed in the damage. It never made sense to me that why the Earth spell did so much damage in the early level and was the one that had the most range. So now we actually have a fix on that, so for me it does make sense. But we also have a bigger range in the early levels and even in the higher levels. The Thunderstorm here, which is the one that actually heals, now you can cast it every turn. This again to help the early levels. The Meteor Impact damage was increased. And now we have the Telluric Blade that you can push 3 squares instead of giving these critical bonuses and penalties. Honestly, it makes sense. I never understood why the Telluric Blade would give a critical bonus or remove the critical bonus from enemies. I think it does make more sense. I think it makes more sense to the Earth playstyle. And besides that, it also have an increase in the range and in the damage. This is a huge thing, the Unification now. You can use it every single turn, which is super nice. I just do not understand why it would cost 3 action points in the first level. I don't think this is a good thing, honestly. I don't think it actually makes any sense. Then we have the Elementary Drain that got a bit of a nerf in the base damage on the early levels, but got a buff actually on the higher levels in the critical damage. Now the Elemental Guardian, which is a summon of the Huppermage, can actually change the elements from the enemies. Is honestly super cool. I think this is actually super necessary. So now we go for the Feca. The Feca here mostly got changes on the levels of that you acquired the spells and basically help a lot in the early levels, so I will not go very in detail into the Feca. But the fortification now you can have actually augment the range. It's an editable range. And the damage reduced was actually increased on the first level that you can get it. The barricade here now increased the movement point on damage received from a distance, and the bastion increased the power on damage received in the melee. So this was actually how Feca worked some time ago, but they changed, like basically they will increase the movement point if it will be unbewitched, the Feca. So now I think kind of returned to what it was. Now as you can see, we also have some spells here that got increased in basically just to become better in the early levels. Now with the Feca shield, you now can actually increase the range of it, and you don't need to cast it on the line. So now we have the Shepherd Lantern that it allows that the Shepherd Star status, which is basically the passive of the Feca, you can apply it easier in your allies. So basically if you have the Lantern on the turn and the end of the turn and the beginning of the turn of the Lantern, the people around the allies around it will get the star, the Shepherd Star, which increases the resistance of the allies on top of the glyphs. And now besides that, we also have the normal glyphs, the ones that you get on the first variant spells. They now actually summon a Lantern as well, and the barrier as well. So this is actually very interesting. We'll see how it will be now the Feca, but honestly I played with some Fecas and it was always super weird to apply the Shepherd Star, so let's hope that it will now fix. Now we have the Return of the Stick, which is the first spell that you can get from the Earth Elemental way. Now it's actually have a editable range, so you actually can have more range with it, which actually is quite important. The Tetany as well, you have a maximum range of 2, and now you don't need to cast it in the line or diagonally, but it needs to have a line of sight. The Drowsiness here got damage increased, and then we have like Torpor, Clay, Languor, Staff, whatever. All the damage got a bit different because they kind of displayed the spells in different places. So I'm very interesting to see how the new Feca in the early levels will be. Now we're the Refugee that now instead of being a point, now it's a circle of size 2. And it has a glyph duration of 2 turns. This is basically the variance of the glyphs, of the first variant spells glyphs. This is the Earth spell one, and basically all of them, they will give a circle of size 2 instead of being a point, which basically just increases the area of effect of Feca. Then we have the Scorched Earth, which was the glyph, the fire glyph that you got at level 80. Now you can get it already at level 60, which is quite nice. Then you have the Lookout, again is the same thing as the other one. Then you have some spells here that got different variant spells. The Black Eye is the same thing with the square. The Typhoon now, it has editable range. You can actually get more range with it, which is actually quite nice. The Sealbow now, you can actually cast it for 2 action points. It's actually super cool. The Maneuver now, you can cast it even if you are in gravity, but you don't switch, you just do the damage. And you can throw it 2 times per turn, which is actually super cool for the mobility of the Feca. It's actually quite important that you can actually cast it 2 times now. The Shiver here, which is the Frisson here, is a Shiver. It basically now you can cast it for 3 action points, honestly super good. Then we have the same thing here, we can see that all the glyph spells, actually you can get them in early levels. Is actually super important because you get the glyphs way of playing way early in the game. And now you have the Pasture here, which is basically also like, instead of a point, is a cross of size. And now we go for the Sram, and I'm very excited to show you guys the Sram because the Sram looks very, very good. Now basically you have a new passive of the Sram. The finishing of a fighter reduces the recast time of invisibility and miss spells by 1 turn. Honestly, this is super cool because it kind of reminds a lot of these assassins. And now check it out, the invisibility. Instead of being 2 to 3 turns, now it's just 1 turn. But MP bonus can go up to 3 movement points at level maximum. You can also use it on enemies, and the relaunch interval is now at just 3 turns. This is honestly super, super cool. I can't wait to see this actually in play, because we now have it, you can only cast it 1 turn, but you can already get it after 3 turns, so you do it 1 turn, and then you just have to wait 2 turns to get it. But if you kill someone in the meanwhile, you can actually reduce for 1 turn. So basically you can go invisible, the next turn you appear and kill someone, and then you already have just to wait 1 turn to get the invisibility again. So this will be very assassin-like, so I'm very interested to see how this will work, and basically also allows the Srams to have more independence on how they want to use their invisibility, but also makes it a bit harder to play the class. But nevertheless, I think this was a buff overall. I think this will be very nice to see. Then we have so many spells, but so many spells that got reworked. Guys, I cannot go through everything, otherwise this video will be super long. But I will leave the changelog below so you guys can have a look for yourself. But overall, a lot of spells, like water spells got lifesteal, a lot of air spells got lifesteal, some int spells, some fire spells got lifesteal as well. As you can see, the haze now does not need a line of sight to apply. Also, a lot of traps, mainly the ones that you would use them to displace the enemies, to attract or to push enemies. Now it's just 2 action points. So you can use them and you can basically do trap lines way easier. The chakra concentration here, now it goes from 2 action points to 3 action points. So this is kind of a bit of a nerf, but honestly the spell is quite good. Now the evasion no longer makes you invisible, but reduces the damage taken, basically by 10%. The mortuary mark now increases damage taken depending on the traps triggered. The mortuary mark was the one that basically would put the enemy with erosion, but now it also increases the damage taken. This is honestly super good. I think it makes more sense, gives really the assassin vibe. The deception power bonus to the traps, now it's just overall power steal, and you can stack it 2 times. The grave head here, I'm mentioning because it will be very interesting for the earth build and just to do the trap lines, because a lot of the traps now you can place 1 more trap per turn if you use the grave head. A lot of the traps are like that now. You'll see them now in the changelog. Also, all the trap damage, all the area trap damage is no longer, it does no longer basically gets smaller the further away it gets from the center of the trap. So now it will be all the same damage, which is a buff. Now you have the extortion, that basically the spell is the earth spell that will give you some life back, but the damage are reduced. This is quite interesting because now the earth way also has a way to get life back. And we also have this for the fire and the agility way, which was only exclusive to the water way. This is something that Amido, a main Sram, told me about it, that the chance way now it's not super specific. It's not very special anymore, because before it was the way that you'd get the most health back. Now all ways can do that, all elemental ways. But still, in my opinion, I think that's a good thing. All elemental ways have a way to get their HP back. But I still think that, for example, the water elemental way is the one that can get the most back. Now the death trap and the deadly attack, instead of being 25% health, now it's 50%, which is actually quite good. As you can see, as I told before, the repellent trap, now you can do it from 3 action points to 2 action points. And if you use the grave head, you can cast it 1 more time. As you can see, another one, the scam, the agility spell, now it has lifesteal. Now the epidemic is quite interesting because you can cast it on yourself, but basically it is, if you have a double in camp, the caster can spread the state if he targets himself. So basically, if the double has the epidemic, I don't know if if already has to have the epidemic or not, but if you cast it on yourself, it will spread the state around the double. This is honestly super good. A bit broken in my opinion, but let's see how it will be. Now the toxic injection also removes movement points. The Insidious trap, you can cast it 1 more per turn if you have the Hell Ring. Now you can use the cruelty in yourself to get movement points, which is actually quite nice. If you don't have like a target, for example, you can just use it on yourself and you get movement points. Now the bad luck here, the water spell that has also lifesteal. Now your range can be modified. The theft here, which is a water spell, now also does lifesteal. The looting no longer heals around the target, but everyone that hits the target will get healed by 25%. And the range got bigger. The villain trap, the trap area damage no longer scales. For the calamity as well, but now the escape penalty is an escape seal, so you get escape back, dodge back. In this case, escape means dodge. It also got an increase in range. Now the cutthroat, which is an intelligence spell, a fire spell, now instead of giving power, you do more damage taken to the enemy, more 10%. The sneaky trap, now it is just 2 action points. If you have the grave head, now you can throw it 1 more per turn. And this range here is honestly super important for Srams in the early game. The same thing with the drift trap here. Now you can cast it 1 more per turn if you have the Hell Ring. The Deceit, which is a fire spell now that gets lifesteal, get its damage reduced but gets lifesteal, which I think is quite nice. Now the fragmentation trap, which was very specific to this elemental way, which will do more damage the further the enemies will be from the center of the trap. Now it will do the same damage no matter if the enemies are far or close to the center of the trap. The break-in now, instead of giving a push resistance penalty, now you basically steal push resistance, which is actually quite important basically to play against builds that are pushback. And now the perquisition, the surge here, it's now just 2 action points, which is actually quite nice. And the push is made from the double if he's present on the field. Honestly, I think there are way more spells that now you can use with your double, which is quite interesting to see how this will work, honestly. Now let's go for the Eliotrope to finish all the classes. Now the portal damage was decreased. The flexible portal also got decreased. So overall, I also talked with a main Eliotrope, Nito, and he told me that there were so many things that got nerfed. But honestly, the class was a bit overtuned. So now we have the portal damage getting a bit lower. A lot of the spells also got rearranged. A lot of the spells now you get lower level or later in the game. And besides that, a lot of the spells now get an editable range. So basically you can get more range with it if you have range on the class. The thing is that according to Nito, you'll never really need this extra range because you use the portals to do damage. And if people then steal your range, then you cannot really play with the class. So he actually preferred before, even though you could not modify the range because nobody could remove your range. So as you can see here, you have the Wakfure that now can get more range. The Transcendence, which was formerly called Stretching. Basically now the HP penalty and the range bonus are removed. Quite interesting, mainly for the penalty here. Also applies the Untouchable state, which means that you can always move through the enemies without being locked. Increases the range of the portals by 2 and the number of times that you can cast the portal. So you can actually cast 3 portals on this turn if you have the stretching. Honestly, quite interesting. I'm very excited to see how this will work. Now the offense now costs only 3 action points. Is actually quite interesting because it was always a very pricey spell to use. You get it very early level, as you can see, 25, level 25 you already get this spell. Now the Insolence here, now you can actually get the range modified and you can get it level 35, while before it was level 175. So we have a lot of spells that were very high-end level that now you get it very early level. So now the virus is called Cataclysm, apparently. And besides that, you can have the Parasite and Virus in the same kit because now it's a variant of the Bully. This is actually quite nice because now you can have actually these two in the same toolkit. So the Lightning Fist now went from level 65 to 165. The distribution here was actually a very good spell on Eliotrope, which basically you would apply this spell here on an enemy, for example, and then whoever attacks the enemy will get healed around, and it will be 50%, now it's 30%, but also counts any type of damage. So for example, weapon damage will also count. The diffusion here also got a bit of a change. The return on the damage suffered is reduced from 50% to 30%, but it also increased the damage taken by the target by 10%, and you can increase the range of it. The Mockery here also has a modifiable range, and we also have the Extinction, what formerly was the Parasite, which was like basically the main fire spell of Eliotrope. Now you also have a modifiable range. And the Sermon here also has a modifiable range. So you now can basically have all the elemental way spells from what I can see here in your toolkit. And besides that, a huge thing that my friend Nito told me is that you can have now the Snub and the Therapy, which are 2 earth spells. One basically pulls and the other unbewitches. And these 2 spells are very important, but you could only choose between one of the 2. So now you can use actually the 2 of them in the same toolkit. So that's really huge for the Earth way. And it's actually a way that really needs some love because it's kind of forgotten. Not a lot of people play Earth way as an Eliotrope. I think it's the elemental way that people play the less. So guys, that's everything for today. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. In my opinion, I really like these new changes. For my Huppermage, honestly, I like some new things. I don't really like the new Astral Blade. It does not make any sense for me. But the new Sram for me looks really cool. I'm quite interested in playing as a Sram now. I think I will try to do some tries as an early level Sram in the new beta server to see how it will be. And so guys, please subscribe if you like my content. More than 80% of the people that watch my videos are not subscribed. And until the end of the year, like until the Unity release, I would like to hit 1,000 subscribers. Actually, today I do 1 month that I'm being a YouTuber, that I have a YouTube channel. So it's been quite a nice ride. I'm really loving doing content for you guys. It's really been a nice experience. And I hope you guys are also enjoying my content. And so, see you next time.